Our girl is destitute.
What conspiracy theory do you have?
You're the Feyre.
I'm Feyre. He hates Tamlin. He's also a bit of a petty bitch.
And yet, she decides, let me just shoot my shot and see it. I'm like, girl. Hello, hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be back with our Akatar friends.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. I mean, we feel like we're like faking it a little
I
bit
know.
because we've been talking for what, like an hour,
Yeah.
almost 2 hours at this point.
Yeah.
Like,
Just solving
about truly
problems,
everything. Solving the
solving
world
solving the
problems.
world problems as, women tend to do when they get together.
Truly, I mean, like we say, gossiping is political, right?
Ah, yeah. It's our form of
You know,
rebellion.
our civic duty.
Our civic duty.
Only we could spin it like that.
I mean, actually, I don't think we're really alone in that thought process, I gotta say,
Probably
because I'm
not.
thinking about a lot of the other, like, bestie style podcasts, and I
Yeah,
honestly feel like that's something that they probably all end up saying at one point, which, it's
absolutely.
true. It's true for all of
Yeah.
us, so
I feel like we really need some kind of a trophy for like the world's most consistent yappers.
wow. Incredible.
I'll say, I love you and this is why you're my best
I
friend.
love you, and this is why you're my best friend, so here we are.
Do you want to say,
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
do you
Okay,
want
yeah,
to,
so, today is, June 16th, day after Father's Day. And my cauldron save me for this week is kind of, I think, for all the people who don't really have a present father, whether that is by choice. I mean, choice on either side, whether that's the child's choice, the father's choice, or whether it's just by um, sad circumstance of having lost a parent through, sickness or death or anything like that. I feel like my cauldron saved me is sort of this almost like weird like shout out to those people of just
yeah,
sort of like I see you. I had a bit of a rough day yesterday. My father's not in the picture. Um Sort of a combination through his choices and my choices. Um and it's hard. It's a hard day. I am very fortunate that both of my sisters have incredible husbands and are incredible fathers to my nieces and nephews. And, I know a lot of really other incredible dads who have helped shape me in a particular way and have given me uplift at different times in my life. And I'm really appreciative of all those men. But as Ariel and I like to say about our two truths, you know, I can, and as Ariel helped remind me this morning too, of just we can hold the space of being really grateful for those men, but also being really sad about our experiences. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of a hey, friends, be gentle. I see you. It's okay to hold the space for both of celebration and sadness. And as Ariel and as a few other friends reminded me yesterday of just like be gentle and it makes sense you're feeling this way. And, it's going to be okay. Cause I think a lot of us are fortunate enough to still have a lot of other examples in our life. So yeah, that's my
yeah.
cauldron save me. It's just sort of be gentle. You're not alone, and it's gonna be okay.
Well, I love you
I love
and
you.
thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
because, like, I think, Father's and Mother's Day are like
Yeah.
really tricky holidays because, like, obviously, on the one hand, you want to celebrate all the wonderful mothers and fathers out there, whether they're yours or people who are in your life. But then, yeah, like, on the other hand, it's like I think everyone or most people will eventually go through something like this because,
Yeah.
most people's at the very least, their parents pass away before they do.
Yeah.
So you'll deal with that. Or if you have a complicated relationship with your parents or whatever it is. They're really tricky holidays, and
Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I think a lot of people are in a similar position as you, where it's like it can be really painful. And I want us to recognize those folks as well. And, like you said, I think the key is being gentle with yourself and knowing like you're not alone. So many people go through this.
Well, and I guess like one more thing that Ariel really reminded me too of just, and that really helped me out a lot was like, and you are valid
Yes.
in your feelings. Even if you don't maybe have the other truth of having other people to celebrate, you are valid
Yeah.
in maybe being hurt or sad or angry that day.
Yeah.
Like you are valid in your emotions, and that's something Ariel does for me a lot, and I it helps me a lot. So you're valid.
You're valid. And someone who even though I don't know her personally, but I think would probably also would agree with us is Mama Mass,
Yeah.
because as we talked about, she writes a lot of
Yeah.
complicated, usually really shitty father
Yeah, she
figures.
does.
So I'm gonna wager she'd probably agree that
Yeah.
you're valid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank God for her
Yeah.
writing.
Seriously.
But my cauldron saved me. I have a couple. I'll
Yeah.
be brief on the first. The first is luckily a happy one. So, last recording, we're only recording a few days after our last. We recorded on Friday the 13th, and now it's the 16th,
Mhm.
Monday. I was feeling really funky that day because of just all the stuff going on with Trump and what he's been doing to LA and California. But the day after was the No Kings protest on his birthday. And it gave me a lot of hope,
Mhm.
honestly. Because right now, the narrative that's still being spun by the administration is like LA is on fire, and it could not be further than the truth.
Yeah.
Like, it was truly, I think, one of the most abundantly love filled
Mm.
experiences I've had.
Mm.
Like, I went to one of the smaller protests. It was probably a few hundred people, which was a lot more than I thought it would be. But like, everyone was so fucking cool. The signs were amazing. That was really awesome getting
Yeah.
to experience and just see how many people are resisting
Mhm.
fascism, and also getting to see how pathetic his birthday was. That was some great schadenfreude.
I just wanna say I'm so proud of you for going and you guys going, because like, I couldn't. And
Yeah.
so selfishly, I was like, "Okay, I have, like, some representation, like, I have
Yeah, yeah.
someone that I like," I mean, I knew a lot of other people who ended up being at the San Francisco one, but,
Nice.
still so proud of you guys, and I'm so happy that you got
Thanks.
that experience.
Thank you. No,
Yeah.
it really it lightened up the spirit for
Yeah.
sure. Especially like as of right now, I know they don't have an official count of how many people showed up
Mhm.
around the country and the world, but last I heard, the conservative estimate is 5 million, but they're thinking it's probably closer to like 10 or 11 million,
So
which is like,
crazy.
I mean, this regardless of which end it is, they're saying it's within the top 5, if not top 3 protests in US history,
Wow.
which is like so fucking cool.
Yeah, it is
So,
really cool.
it got to be part of history, which
Yeah.
was awesome. So that was a good part of Saturday. The
Yeah.
not as good part, which is like kind of my main cauldron. This is my not fun cauldron save me is so Dave and I have 2 cats. Their names are Ripley and Carrie. Yes, they're named after my favorite horror movie, Scream Queens. And Ripley likes to eat things she's not supposed to. And in this case, last week, we woke up and found out she got into the cleaning closet, which she has never done before, and ate part of our Swiffer mop, like
Ugh.
the bottom with like that's like kind of foamy. So we're like, okay, well, we'll see how she's doing. We started to notice trigger warning for bowel
Yep.
movements, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Literally had some watery
Yeah.
bowels. And so we started getting worried, like, is there like a blockage? And so we made a vet appointment, and they're like, but if things are still looking bad, she starts vomiting, anything like that, you need to take her to the emergency vet. So we come home from the protest on Saturday. It was like in like the low 80s. So we were like sweating. I could not wait to take a shower. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take an early shower, 5 o'clock, be in my PJs early, get to like rest after like waking up early on a Saturday. Then around 5 p.m., we start noticing like Ripley has what's called litter box anxiety. So it's like when cats go from like one litter box to the next, like over and over again,
Okay.
or like in and out of their litter box. And she like started crying, and she like had another like soft poop. And we're like, okay, I think I gotta take her
Ugh.
to the emergency vet.
Yeah.
So we get there. It's like 5:30. There's like only one other like couple there for their pet. We're like, great, we're gonna be in and out of here. It shouldn't take long, but it's a triage uh emergency vet. So they treat whatever animals need it the most
Yeah.
first. So like right after we get there, like I'm gonna say 5 or more people came in with their animals, and we ended up so we get there at, like, 5:30, we didn't leave until, like, after
Oh,
11 PM.
jeez.
Yeah, and, like, they closed at 10, so they stayed open an extra hour for us. Yeah, it was a long, long day, luckily, so far so good. They did X-rays on her, they did blood work. Blood work was pretty normal, and the X-ray didn't show any blockages. I think the other thing was, like, it was this weird mix of because it was taking them so long at a triage vet,
Mm.
I was like, I don't know if this is good or bad news, right? Because like it could be good news because they're attending to like the animals that like really need it first, meaning she's good, or they're still figuring out what it is.
Yeah.
So luckily it was the former.
Good.
So just been dealing with that.
Yeah.
It's been annoying. But the one good side, I want to give a shout out to this person. I was at the vet
Oh, yeah.
doing my homework for the next episode. So I have my little ACOTAR book out, and this girl must have like walked in when we were like talking to the vet or something. Because we come out, I sit down, and I look over, and she has a copy of A Court of Silver Flames, and I'm like,
Yay!
oh my god! So like I was like kind of waiting for my moment to like say hi. So like she like went up and talked to the vet or the front receptionist, and right before she went back, I was like, excuse me, I couldn't help but notice you're reading A Court of Silver Flames. She was like, oh yeah, and so I showed her my book, and she was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
We got into talking. She's like, yeah, like my wife and I are currently reading it, but she's like behind me. I'm like, I need you to like, read faster so we can talk about this. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, dude, I totally get that. So, yeah, it was really cool. I didn't get her name, unfortunately. I told her about the podcast. So if you happen to be listening, hello, you were lovely to talk to. I'm sorry I didn't get to say bye. I had to run and get our cat baby food across the street at the house before they closed. But no, it was so cool like meeting another ACOTAR fan out
Yeah.
in the wild. So
Oh.
yeah, that was really fun.
Yay. Hi.
It's funny because like as popular as these books are, I feel like I saw like when I did see like copies of it out in the world, it was like way before I read them, like
Yeah.
back when I was living in New York.
Yeah.
And I haven't really I think this is my first time since reading ACOTAR I've actually seen someone with a copy
Yeah.
out in the wild.
Yeah.
So I got like really
Yeah.
excited about it.
Yeah.
But so that was the one little
Aw.
silver lining. But yeah, the other thing, last thing I'll say is like I don't like God bless the people who work at emergency
Oh,
vets. I
God.
don't know how they do it because like there were some I think it was all dogs just like yowling in
Oh,
pain so
God.
much. I ended up having to put headphones on because I was
Aw.
like, I can't like I think if I were in Guantanamo Bay, you know how they do that like sound torture, like that would be my
Yeah,
sound
just like
torture.
the
Like
animals.
it just like it hurts my heart so bad.
Yeah.
So, but luckily I think all the animals there were fine. Like they seemed to go home with their people. So,
Good.
but yeah, so
Wow.
she's doing okay. We're just like waiting for her to eat at this point.
Yeah.
So, we're having to feed her normal food now cuz she just won't eat the fucking baby food.
Yeah.
So, that was my Cauldron save me for the week. But luckily, I got to finish the chapters we read this week for this episode and next chapter.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Mhm.
Man, this chapter is
Yeah, so chapters 23 and 24
yeah.
for this week. These 2 chapters are really interesting. So, chapter 23, I basically called it I dubbed it the gift of Fey sight.
Yeah.
That's
Oh my god, it's perfect.
It's pretty much what I dubbed this chapter. And I have like I have a lot of questions.
Girl, same.
I had a lot of questions about like the glamour and like everything. Okay. So, the Fae have better eyesight, have better hearing,
Mhm.
have better like instincts. I mean, it's like everything's just like better. But like
Right.
they have better senses, I guess we could say.
Yeah.
So, I feel like there's like two things happening here, where on
Yeah.
one end, he's like giving her the gift of like being able to see as if she was Fae
Right.
and being able to hear as if she was Fae.
It definitely feels that way in this
In
chapter,
this,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, thank you. Yes, in this
Yeah.
chapter, it very much feels that way. So it's like, so he's kind of giving her this little extra gift, sort of. That's
Yeah.
how I read it. But
Yeah.
then we also kind of find out that it's actually more that he is taking off a glamour. It's not like all of a sudden the things that she starts hearing like goes away,
Right.
right?
The only difference is, like, she sees more Fae who have been glamoured, presumably, that she didn't know were there, but that's kind of the only difference.
And like, well, I guess I more mean like when he gives her this ability to hear all this stuff,
Right.
he doesn't then like take it back. So is it just
Right.
that, is it actually truly just that he actually has been dampening everything for her? But
Yeah.
or is it that, because it's very confusing because he has this whole thing here where he's like, you're human. Your senses are
Yeah.
still sealed off from everything. So
Right.
like, and then he says, see my world, hear it, smell it, taste it. It
Mm.
gets a little sexy there. But it's just, it's like, what,
How does it work?
like, I'm just confused of like, is it really just all glamour and we're just
Girl.
like taking away the glamour? Or is it this like weird 1-2 and then she just keeps Faye hearing and sight? Because then she's like, why can't I see you anymore? Right. And he
Mhm.
says that he kind of puts his like normal glamour that he like seems to just sort of like wear in general to just kind of
Yes.
like tame down his power.
Yes.
I'm just, is it just glamour? Like, is that just the
The
simple,
question you bring up is incredibly valid,
yeah,
and I think and I didn't realize this until this read, like, the first time
yes,
I read this, I did not realize it.
yeah.
I think we're supposed to question that.
Ah. I mean, I feel like I even found inconsistencies even within just like reading these 2 chapters, like purely
That's
just
what I
because like,
mean.
yeah, basically what I
Yeah.
just and I mean from a purely first read, like
Yeah.
obviously like the question that I just posed is kind of like,
Yeah.
wait, so you're saying that because she's a human, she can't see some of these things, but then you're also
Right.
kind of admitting that you've been glamoring like your entire court.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so just even as a first read, you're like, I'm
Mhm.
confused. But and
Yep.
I may be bringing up some stuff that like if this is people's first time reading, they may be like, "Oh, I didn't quite," cuz I remember the first time I read
Yeah.
this, I just went, "Okay, glamour, she now can see all these things because he's been like."
Right.
I took it as he has been dampening and hiding a lot of things to kind of make Feyre feel more comfortable,
Comfortable. Right.
right? And 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 so that's kind of how I took it, but this whole "you're human, your senses are still sealed off" feels like he's almost saying something else there and almost like he's like
Yeah.
hiding that he's been glamoring. Well, and also just the fact that he doesn't really like warn her that now that I've
Yeah.
done this, hey, the the manner is going to be real different for you.
You're gonna kind of feel like you're microdosing on shrooms a little
Yeah, like,
bit.
the fact that he doesn't really warn her that, I'll admit, I'm, like, a little this is actually more
Yeah.
I think one of the first times in the, like, first reading headspace that I am, like, annoyed with
Yeah.
Tamlin.
He should have warned
I
her.
mean, obviously, the bite and everything, and then some of his comments, like, we've already
Yeah.
discussed how, like, that's a very sticky feeling back and forth, but this is, like,
Yeah.
one of the first times with the non-spoiler headspace that I'm just like, this is kind of annoying actually
Yeah.
that you did all of this.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, in chapter 23, right, we have this beautiful chapter where, like, she is I mean, it feels very almost like Alice in Wonderland a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit,
yeah,
of like, whoa, look how cool, and like the willows are singing, and she literally calls it like an arpeggio at one
yeah,
point, and like all this beautiful, like, the imagery is just
yeah,
gorgeous, right? And I think that is to kind of mask
yeah.
what's really going on
What he's
here,
really
which
been
is
doing.
Yeah, well, and then the big question is why? Other than her, like, I think it's one thing to like, and I think you're right. I think it is a large part to comfort her,
Yeah.
right? But I have some other questions as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's very sweet, right? We have like
Yeah.
another like I don't know why I love this quote so much, but like the High Lord has had taken me to yet another beautiful spot in his
Yeah.
enchanted forest. Like I don't know why I
He
love
loves a
it.
meadow.
Yeah, he loves the meadow. He loves the glen. And so does our baby girl artist. She loves it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I also just think I think I really just also like this idea of like Tamlin kind of like curating her like her like
Vibes.
enchanted forest experience because he knows that she appreciates the colors. He knows that she like,
Yeah.
so I kind of like this idea of him sort of very specifically choosing some of these spots so she could like be inspired.
Yeah.
So enchanted forest, adorable, love it. And then that's really what starts the whole conversation of like, well, you're a human, your senses are sealed off.
He first starts talking about the willows are
Yeah.
singing, and that's what's putting him to sleep. And she's like, "What are you talking
Yeah.
about? Like, I don't hear anything other than
Yeah.
like the breeze." And yeah, he's like, "Your human senses are sealed off. Do you want to hear them?"
Yeah,
Right?
and, like, even before that, though, one of the quotes that I really love is that she says, "Just another of my many shortcomings," but the word
Mm,
shortcomings had somehow stopped finding its mark.
yes.
I like this quote a lot, I think just
Yeah.
because it's, like we've already discussed this whole idea of, like, her feeling, not powerful and insignificant and all this stuff, and shortcomings has already
Yeah.
been, like, a trigger word for her,
Yeah.
and I really love, like, this she's come to this place of really accepting he is Fae. He is a
Yeah.
high lord. I am a human. And like she's coming to this place of really accepting that, which
Yes.
is then kind of funny, honestly, then that like the turnaround is like, well, now that you've reached this level of personal acceptance, how about I just blow that out of the water and show you
For
all this other
real.
shit that's been going on around you?
He feels kind of in the scene like, this might be a little bit revealing of myself, but like when you're like trying some kind, whether it's like weed or hallucinogenics for the first time, and you have someone kind of like shepherding that experience, right? Like he kind of feels like that. I feel this is like super, I mean, this is maybe just my experience, but I feel that's like super common,
Yes.
like when you're either like just entering college, or like some people, it's as early as high school. And it's like you have that like person or friend, like whatever, who's like a little bit older than you, who like helps
Yeah.
you through that. They're like, try this. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh shit. I feel like that's very much this experience, right?
Dude, 100%. I literally that's such a good way to describe that because also like the experience that I had with like a similar story like that is that it's
Yeah.
someone that is experienced with these drugs or whatever and
Yeah.
they're like they really want you to have a really
Yeah.
good safe experience. So they
Yes.
like they kind of they guide you and they they make sure you drink water. They make sure you like you do
Right.
these certain things they like don't give you more when you think you want more, like they kind of like
Sometimes they do.
well, yeah, sometimes they do, but I'm just saying like I think in this experience like with
Yeah.
Tamlin specifically is I feel like he's very much being like this like shaman. He's like guiding
Yes.
her through the like hallucinogenic experience and just being like
Yep.
it's gonna be okay. Here's just like the little doses. That's a really funny way to put it. I actually feel like that's like super spot on. Well, and then this whole like see my world, hear it, smell it. I also love they're very much at this point where like any form of physical touch between them now is like instant sploosh. Like they're
I was
both
gonna
just like
say.
immediately they're like a cat in heat. Like I just or a dog in heat. I don't know what the phrase is.
Needing to change their underwear
Yes,
afterwards,
like it
like
cuz like she has to like keep from touching him and then like heat radiated from my face as his fingers grazed my cheek. Like
right?
they're really trying to find ways to touch each other. And then when they do touch each other, it's like
Too much.
instant body response. And then also the whole thing of like this very tricky quote
The
of
kiss?
yeah, the kiss.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
And this very tricky quote of I'm one of the high fae. We won't give anything without gaining something from it, which is a little
Yes.
Hmm.
It's a
It's a
question.
question. He starts by kissing her eyelids.
I know.
Ugh, which
It's
is
like,
just wow, wow, wow. Like it's
wowie.
very like I feel like I'm like almost annoyed that they just didn't then just like slowly, gently like fuck in this forest. You know what I
But
mean? Like with all
you
these
know what it
senses
is?
opened and like he's starting the foreplay. Like that's what this feels like.
Right.
And then you like don't
Yes.
even get even like a real kiss. It's just like, ah.
Well, she gets annoyed with him and is like, "Here's your kiss," and kisses the back of his hand, which, like, you know what it is? I think as fun as crushes are to have, having a crush is, like, kind of embarrassing,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Like, it's, like, both the best, like, feeling and also the most mortifying at the same time because it's like, you even when you it's very because, like, at this point, it's so clear he's into
Oh
her,
yeah.
right? And, like, in hindsight, I, like, will think about, like, "Oh, yeah, the person I had a crush on at that time totally had a crush on me because they did this, this, and this," right?
Yeah.
But in the moment, I'm like, "I don't know, like, do they have a crush on me?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure," right?
Yeah.
And I feel Feyre's in that moment,
Oh
right? Where
yeah.
she, like, to us as third parties, it's, like, blatantly clear.
Yeah.
He wants to get in her pants, right? But she's like, "I don't know." And, like, if you think about it from her perspective, especially, the only experience she's ever had has been with Isaac,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that was more of a, like, friends with
Yeah.
benefits situation.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Farrah's really experienced real romance.
Yeah.
Like, she's never been courted,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, she's never been taken out on a date like
Yeah.
this. Like, this is a date.
Yes.
And as someone who, like, I think I may have mentioned before, even with David, like, our first date, I was like, "I don't know if this is a date or not." He asked me to the movies alone, like, but he didn't call it a date, right? Like,
Yeah.
does he like me? Does he not?
Yeah.
I think, like, she's going through that right now,
Yeah.
and so it's like, I think that's why she kinda one of the reasons why she kisses his hand, but I think the other reason is he is kind of like, I'm not gonna go as far as to say douchey, but he's like, "Well, you know, you have to give me something back. Like, I want a kiss."
Right. No, I actually I completely agree. I think it's absolutely both. And like cuz
Yeah.
my when you were talking a lot of my brain went to like but he also basically like asked for it and like that's not
Yeah.
like the way he asks for it is not wildly romantic. And it's like
No.
and
No.
Feyre is definitely a bit of a stubborn brat, I think.
Yes. But
And
in a good way.
yeah, yeah, no, like it's very much in the crush realm of like when your crush actually does start maybe like joking around about something romantic.
Yeah.
You get kind of like, no, I'm not going to be the first one to break. Absolutely
Right.
not. You have to
Yeah.
be the first. What? No, fuck you. Like, no, no, no. If we're playing this little banter flirting game, nah,
It's sexual chicken. Like, you're
yes,
playing sexual chicken.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. But I really like the way Sarah writes this whole the gift of Faysite moment happening. And
Yeah.
what's really, really cool is Ariel and I actually have our first combo. My sound moment and her directing moment is the exact same thing, which I
It's
mean,
a wamba of a
a
combo.
wombo of a combo. Um,
It makes so much sense we both chose this,
it
though.
makes complete sense
Like,
that we chose this, but I think it's really cute that we did
yeah.
personally. But
Yeah.
so I'm gonna kind of start off because
Yeah.
my main moment really is so it starts at 2:09. This is when she's agreed to sort of see his world the way he sees it, right? I also like love this whole image of them like they're both like on their knees, kind of like
Yeah.
facing each other in a sort of like bowing kind of thing.
It feels a little holy
It
in a
does,
way.
exactly. It feels
Yeah.
like kind of this moment, like this shaman leaving. Like honestly,
Yeah.
it's like you making this whole like being guided through your first hallucinogenic experience or something or whatever. Like this is really, I feel like it's really spot on. But so yeah, he says close your eyes, and they're in this beautiful moment, and and she's experiencing the sensualness of him kissing her eyeballs.
Her eyeballs. I think it was her
I know.
lids, but, I had the weirdest image.
Of
Like, I'm
like
just like
actual
her being like
yeah, like eyes
It's how he administers the drug is like, it's in his mouth, he kisses her
Just straight into the
eyeballs.
eyeballs. It's just like it's a really weird way to take this drug.
Oh my
Okay. Oh,
god.
sweet Jesus. Okay. So he kisses her eyelids. It's very sensual. It's very sweet. I was left breathless, the kisses still lingering on my skin. The singing of birds became an orchestra, a symphony of gossip and mirth. I'd never heard so many layers of music, never heard the variations and themes that wove between their arpeggios. And beyond the bird song, there was an ethereal melody, a woman, melancholy and weary, the willow. Ugh. Just like
Beautiful.
it's so, and I think I probably don't have to explain too much as to why I chose this as my
Yeah.
sound moment. It's literally a sound moment of her like
Yes.
just really hearing like I'm imagining it that it's almost like there were a level of frequencies that she could not hear
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
And she is now able to hear frequencies that are just not within the human capacity. And
Yeah.
so, and like, if we were to really open up, because there are a ton of frequencies we don't hear. And if we really start, oh my God. I mean, I think it would probably be like relatively overwhelming. Like, I think I would probably get like wildly overstimulated,
Yeah.
but it's just the description here and the language that Sarah uses, like comparing the singing of birds to a symphony of gossip and mirth. Like,
Oh,
it's so descriptive.
so clearly we're in there if there's gossip. We're two of the
Well,
birds.
exactly. Well, because like, but it gives you an immediate. You hear it because to me that's a lot
Yeah.
of call and response. Then is what that means. That means you're
Yeah.
hearing multiple birds. That means you're hearing one for a little bit and then another, and maybe over each other, and then mirth, laughter, joy. Like it's just so. And then the layer, like the fact that there is constant, even like music going on that is just like within the wind or whatever, and then that's when she hears the willow singing, and I
Yeah.
just there's so many ways you could do this from a sound perspective, and in fact it's slightly overwhelming, I think, to really think about how much you could truly do here. I think the way that I would really want to do it is really use all of these nature sounds to create this constant sort of like low level orchestral experience.
Yeah.
Like not these huge cacophonous kind of sounds, like very like gentle but ever present, and just sort of this
Yeah.
constant, almost like you're hearing like the breathing of the earth kind of style of thing. And I think I think it's so cool. And what I love about this moment, and what I would love to potentially try to convince the director to do with this
Hell yeah.
moment,
Pitch it to me.
is that she has her eyes closed when this is happening, and then she opens it.
Oh,
You
so have like a part of it that's like all black. She's just
potentially
hearing sound.
have this moment where you're POV Feyre. So like
Yeah.
you're looking at Tamlin, and then you close your eyes, and
Yeah.
then, maybe you pop out and you like see, I don't know, because we would need to see the kisses somehow. But it'd be very cool to somehow have a black screen moment.
Can I
Yeah, and now I feel
can
like
I
maybe I pass it over to
mhm.
you.
I love that concept. The only thing I would worry about from a directing standpoint is like people would get like really bored just looking at a black screen. But I love the idea. So what do you think of this?
Ooh, I
Picturing like
think I know what you're gonna say.
a push in shot,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like we're pushing into Feyre, her eyes are closed, the
Yes.
sounds start
Yes,
like
yes,
coming
yes,
in,
yes.
and then we maybe see like the lighting change, like maybe there's more
Mm.
color, or like, oh, I could see it being like from a post-production standpoint, like suddenly the color grading
Yeah,
changes and like the colors become more saturated and like
yeah.
something along those lines, but like we're
Yes,
still seeing Feyre,
yes,
but it's a very simple shot, so
yes,
you can pay more attention to
yes,
the sounds going
yes,
on.
yes, yes, yes. I
I
love this.
love I love this little like I mean everything you said about sound. I had a question for you in terms of like what would you think about like all the sound up until this point of the movie or show being like very like simplified, right? Like it's not super complex and then everything after
Yes,
becomes like
yes,
way more like full body,
yes.
like different layers. Like I think that'd be so
I think
fucking
that'd be
rad.
very cool, because it also would be something that would be subtle
Yeah.
enough. A
Yeah.
lot of what I would wanna do with this moment too is, like, really have this, like, build up, this, like, crescendo into her hearing it, and then kinda
Yeah.
slowly bring it down just so it's at a slightly more
Normal.
normal, quote unquote normal, creating a new normal, maybe, like a new
Yes.
base for her, right?
Yeah.
And then I think that base could stay for the rest of the film or TV or yeah,
Love
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Love it. I want to go a little into how I would direct this
Yeah.
slash like write.
Yeah.
So, and like I didn't really plan on talking about this until like I realized as we were talking, oh yeah, this is totally like someone tripping out on shrooms for the first time.
Mhm.
Everything's heightened, right?
Yeah.
Very much like this. So like I think I would base a lot of the imagery on like my own
Yeah.
experience from like microdosing. Um I think the other thing like I'm just thinking of like comps, and the first two that came to mind were Fantasia 2000, specifically the
Mm.
segment that I think it's the last one
The
in that
Firebird.
movie, the Firebird one, where it's like,
Ugh.
yeah, where it's like Mother Nature, like
Oh.
I just like her like in the world becoming the mountains and everything. It
Oh,
just
and her
like
hair.
reminded me
Yes.
so fucking good. If you
Yes.
haven't seen it, watch it, look it up. It's
So
so fucking
good. It's so
beautiful. And then the other one, kind of left turn, but not really, would be Midsummer. I think I can't remember what drug they take, but there's a part in Midsummer where they take a drug. I wanna say it's
I
like
wanna
it's
say
not
it's
shrooms.
acid.
I think it's
Yeah, I
acid.
think it's acid. Because she does
And,
not want to.
no, and I think that's like I've never taken acid, so I don't know, but I think that's one of the best depictions I've seen of, like, someone taking
Yeah.
hallucinogenics and experiencing it because, like, I think the way it's often portrayed is, like, a little too much,
Yeah.
right? It's like everything's so extreme, whereas in Midsummer, when she takes it, like, it's just like a bunch of people sitting on grass, right? And like Florence Pugh looks over, I think it's like her hand. She has her hand on
Yeah.
the grass and like just see suddenly it looks like the grass is growing out of her hand.
Mhm.
And it's like very gentle,
Yeah.
like actually kind of calming. So I think I would do like I wouldn't literally have grass growing out of Feyre, but
Right.
like doing like similar things where like one technique I love that Ari Aster, the director of that movie, did was like if you look in the background, things are very subtly off. So like the trees look a little swirly.
Mhm.
Like he definitely used some techniques in post production to make things warped a little bit, but in a very, very subtle way where like you kind of have to be paying attention to it to like really notice it. But like even if you're not paying attention, it kind of like the sound, you still feel it. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, this girl is tripping,
Yeah.
right? And I'd kind of do, I think, similar techniques, but in a like more towards a, like, things are just heightened and
Yeah.
less of a, like, she's on drugs because she's not on
Right.
drugs type
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
way. The theme is, we're taking some notes from
Yeah.
hallucinogenics
Yeah.
and, applying it to this
Yeah.
because, like, now that I think about it, wow, it's very appropriate for this stage of Tamlin and Feyre's relationship because it
Mm.
kinda does the first song that popped into my mind is Kesha's "Your Love Is My Drug," right? Like, it is kind of like her falling for him in like
Mm.
in this way. It does kind of feel like when you are a young person out in the world for the first time and kind of experimenting with whether it's drugs or other substances or just like life in general, right?
Yeah.
Like and especially because like you know it's dangerous and
Yeah.
like he is a fae, right? Like that we keep getting reminded of he is more powerful than her. So there is a level of danger
Yeah.
here, right? But in this moment she's in a safe place
Yeah.
with him where like he is her shaman basically
Yeah.
in this moment. So we know she's safe, but there's always a little bit of lingering like not just with him, but just being in Prithian as a human
Yeah.
in general. Like
Yeah.
there's a little bit of lingering danger, right? So I think the drug metaphor actually works pretty well
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah, I do too, and, like, yeah, I think she's not it as you already said, like, she's not hallucinating, right? She's just, like,
No.
seeing things clearer, she's seeing more it's kinda that idea where people talk about how humans, we only use, like, a really small percentage of our brain power, right? And they
Yeah.
talk about how if we ever actually were able to unlock a lot of that
Yeah.
stuff, we would see and experience, like, a lot more shit, and it's like, I almost
Yeah.
kind of imagine it in that way where, like, she's just being, like, opened. She's just being, which is also how a lot of people feel about taking certain hallucinogenics, so that they feel that, like, the different planes have been opened up to them, or just, like, the world is a bit more.
Right. You bring up a good like, now I'm wondering, like, do Fae have access to different parts of their brains that, like, humans don't? Like,
That's kind of how
whoa.
I, like, view it almost, of that
Yeah.
it's that they have this ability to use far more of their faculties, basically, than we can,
Yeah.
plus magic. I mean, there's actually been, like, scientific discussions about how if we were able to tap into the other percentage of our brains, that there are certain things humans would be able to do that would feel like magic to other people who couldn't tap in. So, I mean, there is an element here of where it's like, we don't have time for this conversation, but, like,
No.
are Fae, do they really have magic, or can they just use 100%
Yeah.
of their brain? You know what I mean?
Right.
But
Or not
anyway,
even 100%, but, like, just more
yeah,
of their
just
brain
more.
than
Yeah. But
humans.
so
Yeah. And they have pointy ears, so slightly
yeah,
genetically
exactly.
different, I guess.
I this moment is really fun too, just because you also kind of start understanding, like, the Fae perspective of everything a bit more. Of just like, can
Yeah.
you imagine if this is what your land looks
Yeah.
like? Like, what do humans look like to them? And, like, what does the
Right.
mortal realm look like to them? Like, it's
Right.
just gotta feel so dead inside. And, like, I'm not
Yeah.
excusing how the older Fae treated humans, but it just
Right.
there's a little bit of more understanding of, like, this severe separation, and why some of these, like, really snobby Fae are just like, ugh, you guys are so below us. You can't even hear the willow singing. Oh my god. When you look at a babbling brook, you don't see a rainbow. Wow.
You don't see the majesty of this world.
What a plebe, you know?
You know what
Like,
it is? Like, this is, like, I feel the much, more innocent version of, I think, what the Fae probably go through. It kind of, as we mentioned before, I'm an older sister, and it's kinda like waiting for your younger sibling to grow up and be like, "Oh, why don't you get this?
yeah,
Like, you should get this now." It's like, well, of course they're not gonna get it. They haven't reached the stage of life you're at
absolutely.
yet.
Yeah.
Like, it just reminds me of, like, that's, like, I feel the nicer version of
Yeah.
what the Fae probably experience of, like, yeah, why don't these humans get it,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and I actually think that's a perfect example, because I feel like the Fae really view humans as, like, children, as, like,
Yes.
yes, they're younger, they don't live as long, so, like, it makes sense,
Right.
but yes, from, like, an actual, like, experience standpoint, they are very young compared to the
Yeah.
Fae of what they see within the world. Because I think actually one of the quotes I really love from this portion is, "Magic. Everything was magic, and it broke my heart." Like,
Yeah.
page 210. It's this, I mean, I think for Feyre, it's very much like a painting with all the colors, like, holy crap, like, she's now seeing stuff on a level that she never really saw before.
Right.
But I think it's just this perfect little thing that I think really summarizes this section perfectly, of just that it's
Yeah.
like there is magic everywhere. And
Literally
it was
everywhere.
so beautiful that, like, it's kind of breaking Feyre's heart, because it's
She didn't experience it
yeah, she
before.
never got to experience it before. And what this quote also led me to was this idea of, like, for the Fae, if everything is this magical and everything is this beautiful, is anything beautiful to them?
Damn. This is, I feel, a really common question within the romantasy like genre in general,
Yeah.
whether it's fae or vampires or like just beings that are immortal, right? I think that's a common theme. And I think it's kind of why we get this trope where it's like you have a fae or a vampire who falls in love with a human because it's like, and I think Tamlin even says it in is that in the last chapter we did or the chapter we're doing next? I can't remember. But he mentioned something about like that's why he's so fascinated with Feyre's like outlook on life is her lifespan is so much shorter and therefore she has a different perspective on life than Fae do,
Yeah.
right? So I think you get this really interesting dynamic, right, between like humans and immortal beings and seeing the difference of appreciate. I mean, I think we talked about this also in another episode of like it's why Fae tend to be more violent because they're
Right.
so bored
Right.
with life, that
Right.
violence is kind of like one of the few things that excites them,
Yeah.
right? Because they're coming up against their mortality,
Yeah.
right? Because yes, they're immortal, but they're not fully immortal,
Yeah.
right? They're not gods, like they can die.
Yeah.
So
But I it just sort of gave me this, like, moment of just, like, I think that could also be why someone like Feyre is really attractive to Tamlin, because it's
yeah.
this beauty in the imperfection. And if you are
Yes.
surrounded by this beauty, this magic, like, all
That
the
is
fucking
perfect.
time, wouldn't it be almost more attractive to see someone who isn't entrenched in that? Like, I think
Right.
it brings up a really interesting, and why I think some of these boys, like Lucian, potentially having fallen in love with a lesser fairy, like, I don't know, I just think these, like,
Yeah.
there's some ideas here that I think are really fascinating to kind of unpack from, like, a psychological standpoint. That's kind of one of the things I love about these genres, is, like, really kind of
Yeah.
digging into the psyche of some of that shit.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the next day.
Yeah, yeah,
So the next day, Pharaoh wakes up and there's a fairy who she describes as a squat woman with skin made from tree bark in her room. And she's like, "Who the fuck are you? Where's Alice?" And she's like, "Bitch, I am Alice." Like, what are you talking about? And it's this I love the scene, but it's such a big,
yeah,
like, kind of what the fuck moment
yeah.
because as we find out, Fairy gets up out of bed and she starts going through the manor and sees all these other fairies
Dude.
that she's never like, and it's like a
Yeah.
lot of fairies.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Where did all these fairies come from?" And through that, she asks Lucian and Tamlin when she
Right.
gets down to breakfast. She finds out that Tamlin has put a glamour up. So that way, not only could she not see all of these fairies who have been around the entire time, but also that she would see the fairies that she does see, like Alice, as looking more what I'm assuming is more human
Yeah.
like more like high fae
Yeah.
looking. I think she even says they look more like high fae, so human plus pointy ears, than they actually do in real life, which I have a
Dude.
lot of feelings about.
Yeah. I do too.
I get the intent
Yes.
behind this,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I do think Tamlin was coming from a good place
Yes.
of like, she's a human. I've already basically kidnapped her. She's not happy about it. Let's try and make her, like you said, feel more comfortable,
Yeah.
right? But then on the other side, I'm like, this is a little racist. Like,
Yeah. Yes.
well, it's assuming a lot about a person he doesn't know, right?
Yes.
And mind you, she does admit at some point, like, she probably would have got into her room and not come out, for a long
Yes.
time. But then she also does mention, she says on page 213 before she finds out that the fairy in her room is Alice, she says, "But I would have remembered a fairy with skin like that, would have painted it already."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, which tells me, like, sure, she probably would have been initially scared, but then she would have, like, and I think it's more of it's scared in a way of, like, because of what they've been taught, right? Like,
Right.
she's been taught as a human, like, all fairies are evil and they're gonna hurt her. But then, like, when she actually got to know them, I think she would have, like, found, and she does, obviously, she found the beauty
Beauty.
in them, right?
Yeah.
Like, anytime we see Feyre painting, it's either to do one of two things: to either process something she has been traumatized by,
Yeah.
or to celebrate the beauty of
Yes.
something or someone,
Yeah.
right? And in this case, I think it's very clear she would have done it in the latter
Yeah.
form, right? Of like celebrating the beauty of a fairy like Alice or some of the other fairies. So it's again, I think Tamlin's intent was good,
Yeah.
but the
But my
execution
God.
wasn't.
Dude, homie. Yeah, it's just, and even like Feyre, when she's talking with Lucian and Tam, and she's like, "So you mean, like, when I ran after the puka that night?" And they're like, "Yeah, you had an audience."
Yeah.
Fuck off. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that is
Yeah.
just, yes, it's a funny, it's like, sure, it's kind of funny now,
Yeah.
but like that
It's kind of
it's
gross.
it's it's also just feels, it just feels it feels like this other reminder that she's just like this little human. Like, I don't know.
Right.
It's a pretty, and yeah, that was early on. Like, okay. I also kind of feel like Tamlin almost could have like slowly pulled the glamour
Introduced.
away. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like done it like that.
Totally.
I honestly think maybe it would have been like when she arrived to the manor the first time,
Yes.
have everybody
Yes.
glamored. And then maybe that next day she wakes up to a full manor and just
Yep.
have her get,
Or
but
ease
like
her in some
or
way.
something. It just this
Yeah.
way feels so secretive and like a little icky and just kind of like
Yeah.
he's not really giving he's not giving Feyre like any credit either.
No. He's making choices
And
for her.
again, he didn't know her. He didn't know how things were
Right.
gonna go. And so, I mean, yes, I think it could also be that, like, you know, maybe he wanted to make sure for the safety of his staff that, like, she wasn't gonna start, like, killing,
Fair.
you know, the fairy and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But just a
I
lot
don't
of
think that's why
yeah,
though. I
I
think
don't
it
think
really
so
is
either.
for her.
Yeah.
And I think, there's kind of a joke if you've been in the Akatar community at all online, there's kind of a joke that comes around every so often of like it'll be like, Feyre is sitting on the toilet taking a massive
Right.
shit, having no idea there's some fairies like outside in her room hearing it,
Yeah.
right? Which is like, haha, that's funny. But then if you actually like
Think about
really
it.
think about it from a realistic standpoint, like that is so invasive
Yeah.
and like it comes back to kind of it's a similar conversation we had last week about consent, right? But in a different way of like she doesn't know like she is I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, she's kind of being surveilled,
Yeah. No, yeah.
especially with the Puka incident,
Yes.
right? Like, and going back to what you were saying about Tamlin, not knowing her when he made this choice, like again, while the intentions may have been good, like she didn't get any say in the matter, right? Like
Exactly.
he doesn't know he especially when he decided to do this, he had no concept of who she was as a person,
Yeah.
really. Like other than she hunts, killed my friend, and has been on the back of my horse for 2 days,
Yeah.
right? Like other than that, knows virtually nothing about her. And so he made a choice for her without her even knowing
Yeah.
he made a choice for her.
Yeah.
So, is it the worst thing in the world? No,
No, no,
but it's
no. But
certainly not
it's
great.
not it's not great. Yeah, and I mean, I like I mean, I think it's interesting, you know, Feyre in this moment, she is very like she kind of just like brushes it off, right? Like she's very like,
Yeah.
I get why he did it. Like I do.
Yes.
And, you know, but it is kind of like when you really think about it more, it's embarrassing for Feyre. And
Yeah.
but it's funny because as we're talking, I'm even trying to think of like a time when he could have done this easily. Like when would have been the best time? And maybe this is why Tamlin does it right now. He's like, you know what?
Yeah.
Like it's been too long. She should really see what's going on around her. I just wish they didn't tease her about the whole. She didn't need to know there was an audience when she saw the puka. They could have just kept that.
No, she didn't.
Like that
She
was
really
just
didn't.
that one really sucks. But yeah, but then it's interesting. This conversation really leads into we get a whole other moment of like something's going on with the blight because
Yeah.
basically they start talking about how if the because we have this discussion of how come some of these other fairies she's been able to like see them, right? And
Right.
it's because we learned that he is only glamored the people that are a part of his court.
Correct.
So it's only spring court. So that's why when we kind of met these other people, when we met that tall, dark, and handsome stranger,
Yes. The
not a
Naga, the
spring court Naga
Suriel.
Suriel. And then also, what is really interesting though is that clearly Tamlin did not want her to see what the adder looked like,
Yeah.
because he threw a glamour over her for that. And so she has
Yes.
this moment of like, if that happens, I'm gonna see this thing. And
Right.
Tamlin's basically like, yeah. And honestly, like if you see like the blight is hardcore acting up, if you see anything that you like don't recognize or just like doesn't have a mask or like whatever, like I need you to run. And what I think is interesting is she has this quote where she's like, this is for my own safety. Like
Yeah.
Tamlin is not just sort of
He's not just doing it to
this
do
isn't
it.
like Cal and mine.
No.
Right?
No, no,
She's
no.
like this is not for his amusement. This is
No.
purely like when he basically she says that because he's reminding her about the Naga, about what happened.
Right.
And she's
Right.
like, this isn't for his amusement. He is truly this is for my own safety. He doesn't want to punish these creatures for hurting me, which I think is
Right.
interesting. But she also knows that he doesn't want to make her upset or like whatever. And I think this conversation that happens in between them, I think is kind of fascinating because Tamlin's saying to her, like, you're going to be safe, right? Because
Right.
she's asking all these
Right.
questions. And she's like, it's not my safety that I'm worried about.
Yeah.
And so this is
Tis.
this like moment I feel like within them that it's like, you're her man now, dude. Because
Yeah.
Feyre is in her survival headspace. How can, and we've already seen this a little bit, right? Where she like is asking how she can get his mask off. She's upset
Yeah.
when the glamour gets taken off that she can't pull his mask off. She's like
Right.
asking all these questions of like, have you tried this? Have you tried this? And you're like, baby girl, you really think he hasn't fucking tried like everything? But she's in lady fix it mode, right?
Yes.
And I
Yep.
I think it's a really sweet moment, but we kinda end this little section with her thinking about how he had taken the painting and how he had said, like, he wasn't alone. And she has this thing of saying, like, I wish he would let me in," because she can tell
Yeah.
he's not going to,
Even though she's let him in
even though she's
in
let
a
him
lot of
in. And,
ways.
we can talk about this till we're blue in the face, really, because a lot of it, I think, has to do with the fact that she is a human. But there is a level of confiding that he could do, and, like, that's why I think these collection of chapters are really interesting because 'cause they're kind of the first ones where I'm genuinely like, "Brother,
What's going on?
stop being this, like, strong man, I can do it all by myself." Like,
Yes.
Farrah can help by just being an ear. Even if she can't
That's the thing.
actively do a shit ton for you because she is a human, and yes, you
Right.
are more powerful, but, like,
You can confide in her.
exactly.
I do feel though like we kind of, and this is not excusing why he stays so he builds up walls,
Yeah.
right? But we see the next day an
Yeah.
example
True.
of why
Yes.
he does kind of have to have this like front in a way.
The glamour immediately comes off,
Oh
and the
my
next
god.
day, we get a fucking headless we get a severed head in the
On a
fountain
spike. Yeah.
on a
Like
spike. Like,
it's
immediately I feel like
brutal.
immediately Tamlin's probably like, "And this is why."
I know. No, it's like he truly accidentally proved his point
Yeah.
in a way,
Yeah.
in the worst possible way.
Yeah.
Feyre is the one who finds it,
Yeah.
mind you. She's like going out with her paints and is
I
like,
know.
severed head,
Severed
cool.
head.
Lucian gets all up in there, gets the head out of the fountain, and he says that there's a sigil behind its
Yeah.
ear, and it's a sigil of a mountain with 3 stars.
Mhm.
To which Tamlin immediately says, Night Court. So Tamlin and Lucian are assuming whoever, and we don't even find out who this head belongs to, who
No.
this fairy was, but we do know whoever did it was probably from the Night Court.
Yeah.
And the reason they believe this is Tamlin says to Feyre, the Night Court does what it wants. They live by their own codes, their own corrupt morals. And then Lucian says they're all sadistic killers. They delight in torture of every kind and would find this sort of stunt to be amusing, right?
Mhm.
So they're painting a very dark picture of the Night Court. And we've gotten a little bit about the Night Court in the past. I know specifically in the chapter where Feyre is in the study and sees the painting
Yeah.
on the wall, she talks about how kind of scary looking the Night Court is portrayed in that painting. So we're getting a sense that the Night Court is not really a place you want to fuck with,
Yeah.
right? She also questions if this head being severed by someone from the Night Court is connected to the Blight. And Tamlin tells her only in that they know the Blight is again awakening. I'm assuming he means they, as in the Night Court, uh, and wants us to know they're circling the Spring Court like vultures should our wards fall further. So there's this very real threat of if the Spring Court's wards fall more than they already have, not only are we going to deal with this she who, for as we know, all we know might be from the Night Court because
Yeah.
we still don't know who
Who
she
knows? Yeah.
is. But regardless if she is part of the Night Court or not, the Night Court is. It sounds like they're ready to come in and do some damage.
Yeah, and it's interesting because 'cause we're already dealing with, like, all these other things coming across the borders, and we're already kind of dealing with some of this other stuff. And like, it really led me to this question of like, why does it seem like so many people or so many of the Fae like want the spring court? Like,
Yeah.
it seems like it's like hot property. Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like the power or if it is because it's so close to the wall, right? Like, it seems
Yeah.
like it's one
Yeah.
of the courts that's like the closest to the wall. So maybe it's like proximity.
Right.
This doesn't feel like the first time that we're being kind of reminded that there's like something around the bend, like waiting for us,
Right.
kind of like. And it's weird. And also, yeah, I agree, like the way that they're talking about the night court, because I even wrote, I was like, is the night court like with this she?
Right.
Because I mean, honestly, I gotta say, I would kind of hope yes, because if not, we got too many things happening to the
Oh, a
Supreme Court.
lot of
Like then
problems.
it kind of begs the question of like, why, why does everyone like hate or want the Supreme Court? Like, they seem like the good guys. Like, I don't understand what's going on.
Right.
I also think it's fascinating that the minute the glamour comes away, we get all of these. We learn more about the politics of the Prithian. We learn more about all this stuff. And I literally wrote like losing the glamour, losing the innocence. Like, we're really stepping away from just fun, sweet romance time. Like, we are
Yep.
seeing the reality of things a bit more. And
Yeah.
and it also leads, Feyre, we kind of come back to this idea where Feyre is like, geez, like this is a joke, like because right, because
Yeah.
even there's that quote where he's like, it's court posturing, the night court is deadly, but this was only their lord's idea of a joke.
That's a really telling thing
Well,
of the night court.
exactly, but it also comes back to the idea that Farrah's already kind of brought up of like, if people are this harsh to their families, how are they to their enemies? And so
Right.
it just leads, and then it leads us down this sort of garden path, right? Of just like, these are their ideas of jokes. What did the humans have to go through when they were slaves?
Yeah.
Which is,
It's a great question because, and I do wonder, I mean, obviously we know the humans were, I mean, horrifically tortured and all sorts of stuff, obviously enslaved. But it does bring up a good question of like, were the humans just playthings for the Fae versus like, when you're dealing with Fae on Fae violence, right? Like I that could be in certain ways
yeah,
worse if you think about it, because
yes,
it's like the humans, I don't think they're not really seen as enemies. They're seen as insignificant, from a Fae perspective,
yeah,
which is why they enslaved them. But like when you're dealing with like people just as powerful as you, like I kind of feel like there might be a thing of like the violence is even more intense
yes,
in certain ways.
yes. Well, I would also argue that some of some of the people who have been enslaved were treated as playthings,
Yes.
and that's horrific. I mean, the way that
It's a different type
the
of
way that, exact, it's
violence.
a different kind of violence, because you're already viewing as them as being lesser beings than you, right? To be able
Right.
to enslave someone, you like, I really feel like that's the only way you can be viewing them.
Yeah.
And then when
Yeah.
you start viewing them as toys, think
Yeah.
of how you treated your Barbie when you were a kid. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like, that's a pretty like harsh comparison, but like, I think you know where I'm going, where like my
Yeah.
sister had like a Black Beauty horse toy
Yeah.
that we very quickly in a year broke all four of his legs
I think we
just
all
by
went through,
being harsh with it, right?
maybe I'm about to reveal something about myself, but I feel a lot of us went through that phase where like probably around like 5th, 6th grade where we started rejecting our Barbies and we all like decapitated them
Yep.
and
Or
cut their
cut their
hair off and
hair.
shit
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. Yep.
Well, that's why in the Barbie movie, the weird
Yeah.
Barbie is like, so like we all had that one Barbie. I'm sorry.
We
I
all
don't
had a
care
weird
who you
Barbie.
are. You had that one Barbie that you did
Yes.
that shit to. Don't pretend. But yeah, no, it's a terrifying headspace to think of how like these Fae could have been treating these humans. Um
Yes.
And that's why I also think it's really telling that when Feyre asks, like, were they
Happy to
glad?
leave.
Like, were they happy to leave? Like, were they, and he kind of talks about how like he was such a kid. And that he was, like, I was happy to see them go, even if my father wasn't. And
Yeah.
then it says, despite the stillness with which he stood, his claws poked out from above his knuckles. And
Yeah.
I think this is another really telling moment for Tamlin of just like, 'cause he even brings up how, like, they know the survival transition or, like, the seasonal transition for humans were really difficult who are from the spring
Right.
court and, like or just from any of the courts really, because all of these places all of these humans were used to, like, one specific season, and so, like, having to deal
Right.
with all 4 was, like, a harsh transition.
Which, let me just say, as someone who moved from New York to LA, that's so fucking real.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also someone who grew up in, like, Bay Area and then moved
Yeah.
to New York.
Yeah.
Like, that had to have been quite a shift for you.
Very much.
So
Very much.
yeah, so it's like he's very aware that their transition was rough, but I just think it's really interesting that his claws are out in this moment when he's talking about this, because I think it just shows Tamlin's, like, internal nature is just, like, very against the way these people were treated
Yeah.
and has such sympathy and such anger towards his
Yeah. For
dad.
all of his faults, that is, like, I think one of his most redeemable qualities is,
Yeah.
like, he is very, um, very I don't even know what the word is, like, because upset feels so, like, low grade for how he feels, like, he's incensed
Yes.
by slavery.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, to give him some credit, like, that is, like, part of the generational trauma I think he broke is, like,
Yeah.
his dad and his brothers and, they all owned slaves and his mom didn't really do anything about it. And so him being like, "Yeah, no, now that I'm High Lord of the Supreme Court, we're not doing that,"
Yeah.
right? That's really significant.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it was interesting that because the chapter basically ends on this conversation of
Yeah.
them talking about his dad's slaves. And, he even says, or I'm sorry, Feyre says, "You're not your father, Tamlin, or your brothers. You never made me feel like a prisoner. It never made me feel like little more than chattel." So, this is, because, the one thing is, even though he's always been anti slavery, we don't really know how much experience Tamlin has had with humans who weren't slaves,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
kind of get the sense that this is like Fair is really the first time he's interacted with a free human,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, I think there's going to be a lot of blunders
Yeah.
because of that, including him doing this
Yeah.
glamour, right?
Yeah.
But he's learning.
Yeah.
We can give him that.
He is. And I think also just, like, in the way he responds to her saying this, you can tell this is really kind of to weirdly, like, almost circle round to the whole episode that we just recorded is, like,
Yeah.
it brings me back to this idea of, like, what I said about how sometimes you just need someone to tell you the thing that seems obvious or the valid or like, the justification of your feelings or kind of, like, all these things, and, like, it really feels like somehow Feyre found, like, the crux,
Yeah.
like, his big chip on his shoulder, I think, is really
Yeah.
trying to find the middle ground of being a High Lord in this court, but also not being his father, and, like, how does
Yes.
he find that? And because it even
Yeah.
says after she says that quote that, like, she can tell by, like, the shadow that crosses, like, his face that, like, there's more,
Yeah.
but she knows the gift she can give him right now is, like, space.
Yeah.
And it's just I don't know, I think it's just it really shows, I think, Farrah's insight, and I think also it just shows, like, God, Tamlin is just oh god, he's just carrying a lot of fucking baggage that honestly, now that
Yeah.
I've said it, I'm just kinda like, "Bro, if you just fucking talk to Feyre, this would probably really
I
help
mean,
everybody."
men will do anything but go to therapy,
Oh,
right?
God in heaven. God in heaven. And on that note
On that note, so that ends this week's chapters. Next week, we're only going to do one chapter. We're going to do chapter 25. It's a pretty hefty chapter, I'll say.
yeah, not in page count, but in, like, a
What happens?
yeah.
It's a pretty significant moment in this book. For that reason, we want to give us enough time to talk about it because, as you know, we're yappers. So don't worry, people who haven't read it. It's not anything bad. It's actually quite
It's
delightful.
quite delightful.
You'll enjoy it. So yeah, chapter 25 next week. We would love it if you could subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and or YouTube, and tell your friends about us. Like I said, bring them into the cult because those who've read the whole series know this is not just actually good PSA if you haven't read the full series. hate to break it to you, but you're not just reading 5 books. You are now in a 16-book cult because you will read Crescent City and you will read Throne of Glass. I promise you,
Yeah.
it's addictive.
Yeah.
Sarah J.
Yeah.
Maas's books are addictive.
Yep.
So, welcome. Bring your friends.
Exactly.
You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Cauldron Save Us Pod for some fun ACOTAR content. And if you want to pop in, say hello, make any suggestions, whatnot, you can email us at cauldronsaveus@gmail.com.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think Ariel talking about the whole cult thing actually is like pretty perfect because it is pretty much why our sign off is what it is.
Truly.
So as always, you're welcome.
And we're sorry. Bye.
Bye.